All right, so let's look at the textbooks a little bit then. One of the books we're going to talk about is Leadership, Leading at a Higher Level. This is Ken Blanchard. We're going to watch a short video clip with Ken. This book is referred in your syllabus. Chapter 15 is the chapter that is your leadership point of view. And I will copy that chapter. It will be the whole chapter that will be on Canvas, and that's the final assignment for the class. So that's 24 classes from now. You'll be coming up with leadership point of view. It's taken, the background is taken from chapter 15 in this book. We're going to talk about Ken Blanchard quite often. He's one of the gurus. He wrote The 1 Minute Manager, which was 13 million copies successful. More than that, that was a while ago when I put this slide together. So I don't know how many copies, but The 1 Minute Manager continues to sell. He wrote that originally and has done the rest of his career in management principles and concepts. We're going to watch a few videos by Ken Blanchard before this class period is over. Not today, but before the course is over. Right now we're going to look at Ken Blanchard for a little bit. You'll get a chance to hear him talk and talk about performance leadership, and this is about a 5-minute video.
She wrote a wonderful book called The Leadership Engine, and then Noel and I worked with Young Brands together, and his research showed that great leaders are people who have a very clear leadership point of view, and they're willing to teach it to others. And so Margie, my wife, and I got excited about that, and we developed a whole course in our Master of Science in Executive Leadership at the University of San Diego around determining your leadership point of view. And the first question we really ask people is, who are the models in your life? Where did you get your image of what a good leader was? And it's so interesting, almost nobody ever mentions an organizational leader. They talk about their mother, their father, an uncle, a grandmother, a coach, a teacher. That's why we started talking about leadership is not just dependent on having an organizational leadership position, but everybody are life role leaders. If you're trying to influence anybody else, you're really engaging in leadership. And then we ask them, what is your mission in life? Why did the Lord plop you down here? And we teach them how to write their own mission statement. And then what are their own personal values? What do they want to use to drive their lives? And then what we do is we then say, okay, now based on that, now what's your leadership point of view? What are your beliefs about leading and motivating people? And then, okay, now if that's your beliefs, what can people expect from you? And what do you expect from them? And then finally, how are you going to model what you say? And it's been fascinating to see what happens with people who really go through a process and develop their leadership point of view and teach it to their people. It just kind of blows their mind when they call a meeting and say, the reason I wanted to have you together is I wanted to share my leadership point of view and see how you can help me live consistent with that leadership point of view.
So that's Ken Blanchard. He's a good guy, still living, still working with the University of California, San Diego in the executive program for business management, which is what we're really doing in Fast Forward, right? It's not a 4-year thing. We're doing it in 1 year here in this program that you're in right now. The first book that we're going to talk about, we'll begin it today, is the book called Built to Last. And this is investigating the successful habits of these visionary companies. And in your syllabus, you see those companies on the left column, Built to Last. This was written and published in 1994. It was written at Stanford University. Jerry Porras was the dean of the business program. He has a PhD, didn't say it here. He has a PhD, doesn't say it here. Both of them are doctors in business, if you want to say that by qualification. Both of them taught at Stanford. Jerry Porras was the leader of the business, was the head, the dean of the business program, and Jim Collins was an employee instructor professor that worked for him. They wrote the book together at that point in time. Here's Jerry Porras talking a little bit, and his point of view is that organizational values are not as important as individual values. That it's your point of view. If you're a leader, you are going to make an imprint on your organization. And that imprint's going to be a good one or a bad one. And we all can remember bosses that we worked for that were jackasses, that just weren't good. We've been studying a book in the faculty here in college called the Jackass Syndrome. And it's the real thing. There are jerks out there. And we know some of them, and there are days when I'm one of them, and that doesn't go for good leadership. So we're trying to talk about that. Here's Jerry Porras with another little clip.
Well, Hawaii for me is a really special place because I actually lived here a year. One of the things that the academics get to do is take sabbaticals. And on sabbaticals, you can sort of go anywhere you want in the world or in the country. And I came here and spent a year here. I just lived right down the street, Kalakaua, or right below Diamond Head. And it was a wonderful year for me. I wrote a book, and the title of the book was Stream Analysis, which you ask, well, what does that have to do with organizations? But in fact, I was influenced very heavily by this, all the water, the ocean, and the Hawaiian culture. So this is a special place for me. And I hope that it's been a special place for you in the last few days, because as I see and hear what it is that you're trying to do is, you're trying to execute a lot of really incredible change, a lot of exciting new directions that you're heading in. And I'm hoping that the ideas that we'll share with you for the next hour or so will be ideas that can help you put that change in context, help you guide yourselves as you go through that change, because many of the basic views that we generated out of studying these really outstanding organizations, I think can be helpful for you. You are undergoing a lot of change, and the organizations we studied underwent a lot of change, and they followed some basic, very powerful principles. Let me tell you a little bit about the organizations and how we got into the study that was basis for this book, Stream Analysis, I've got that on my mind, Built to Last, Successful Habits of Visionary Companies. That's the title of the book that we published. It reports a 6-year study that we did of 36 companies. And I want to tell you a little bit about what these 36 companies were like as a way of getting some feel for the ideas that came out of these companies, and then also present to you a framework and a set of basic perspectives on how these companies manage themselves to outstanding success over a very long period of time. Now, the title of the book is Built to Last. Built to Last. And the perspective that these companies followed and that I want to emphasize is that these notions are helpful if you want to build something that's going to endure and last for a very long time. It'll be successful for extremely long periods of time. Now, how did we do the research? Let me quickly talk about that very, very briefly so that you can get a sense of it. We studied 36 companies. 18 of them had been identified as being highly visionary companies in a survey we did of 700 chief executives. We asked them, nominate for us 5 companies that you think are the most visionary, because we want to study them. We took the responses that they gave us, and we identified the 18 most frequently mentioned companies. In actual fact, we identified 20, first of all, but we threw 2 of them out very early on, because these 2 were quite young in 1990 when we did the research. The 2 companies were Apple and Compaq. You know, retrospectively, it seems like what a wise idea to throw out Apple. But Apple and Compaq in 1990 were 13 years old and 8 years old, respectively. The next youngest companies in the set were Sony and Walmart, that were 45 years old. They were founded in 1945. And then the companies went all the way back to 1812, where Citibank was founded. And that's the oldest company in the set that we studied. The average age of these companies in 1990 was 93 years old. On average, they were founded in 1897. So today, in 1996, they're almost 100 years old on average. So these companies have been around a long time. We threw those 2 youngsters out because we quickly realized that age makes a difference. You know, the older I get, the more I realize that age makes a difference. Thank you, thank you. That's the over 50 crowd, right? You know, my wife really put this in perspective for me recently. She told me, she said, Jerry, you don't have to worry anymore about dying young. Well, why does age make a difference? Why does age make, especially when we think about organizations? Age makes a difference because across time, you get a chance to face a lot of very different environments, a lot of extremely different challenges, a lot of very, very unique opportunities and difficulties. And if you look at a company like Citibank, or Procter & Gamble, or Johnson & Johnson, or American Express, you see that these companies have had to face things like a civil war that happened in the 1860s. They've had to face incredible technological change. When you look at the late 1800s, early 1900s, it was the invention of the railroad, the telephone, the telegraph, automobiles, airplanes, electricity in each home. I mean, it's incredible change that these companies had to deal with. So very often people say there's a lot of technological change going on today. And I say, yeah, that's right, but boy, look in that era. These companies have had to work their ways through that.
So that's Built to Last from introduction. We'll dig into that, chapter 1, hopefully today, but for sure Thursday we will. We're going to introduce the book Good to Great a little bit with Jim Collins. I abbreviated G to G in some of the documents that you will get. That's Good to Great, and that's our core book. If you haven't read it, it's an assignment to read that book or listen to it in this class. If you don't like to read, you will like to listen. This is an interesting book about companies that we know, and it's not dry college textbook kind of stuff. They're companies we know, and bonehead decisions that they made, or brilliant decisions that they executed, and ones that we are going to be able to learn from, because I don't work for a company that big. I work for a little company in St. George. How do we apply those principles to our small business here in a small corner of the United States? And so that's why we're looking at this, and why they looked at these big companies with their public companies, and they had to publish everything. So you have to write a 10K and a 10Q for your company for Wall Street to decide whether they ought to invest in your company or not. You got to tell the truth. If you lie, you go to prison. It's a federal crime. And so there's public information about decisions those companies made and conversations that they had, and we, in retrospect, can Monday morning quarterback it and say, that was good, or that was dumb, and I sure wish I didn't have stock in your company, or something like that. Good to Great, I think, is a fantastic book. Jim Collins wrote it solo because Jerry Porras had retired. Jim Collins wrote this book a few years later after Built to Last, and why he wrote it was he was on a speaking tour talking about the book Built to Last. They made a bunch of money selling a lot of copies of this book, and people were reading it and go, this is cool, we're learning stuff we can apply to our business. And somebody came up to him after one of those and said, hey, my company's not so built to last. It's a kind of ragtag business, and a bunch of people have screwed it up already. Do I stand a chance of ever being in a lasting organization, or should I just quit now? And he goes, I don't know the answer to that question. Is there any example out there of companies that were crappy and then something happened and they became great? That was the premise that started the research. And he went back and looked, and he looked for companies that were average against their industry for a period of 15 years, and then something happened and they outperformed their industry for 15 more years. So a total span of 30 years, that's more than one CEO. That's a variety of things that happen in a marketplace. And so something happened here that caused that company to separate itself. Why did People Express die and ValueJet, or it died too, JetBlue, why did they make it? Southwest is who I was going for. Southwest was open at that time. Southwest made it, and how many competitors to Southwest didn't? And you go, they're in the same business. flying the same people with the same bags to the same airports in the same airplanes. How can one make money and one lose money? Right? And so that's an interesting question. What is the management? And it's management. What's the difference here? You know, Best Buy, if we flip aside for a second, Best Buy is not one of the comparison companies that we're looking at right this second. Best Buy took store managers in Atlanta, in Sarasota, Florida, in Chicago, and in San Francisco and other markets, but those four come to my mind, and they took stores that were in the same suburban demographic neighborhoods. Same income, household incomes in the radius of the store. Exact same store footprint. Well, I've been to Best Buy. We know what it's like. We know TVs are on the right, cash registers to the left. They're all laid out the same. They got the same products in there. They would take a store that was doing poorly and a store that was doing good, and they'd switch managers as an experiment to see what happened. All the employees were the same except for the senior boss, the store manager. And what they found was the results flipped. The store that was tanking all of a sudden started doing well. How come? One leader. And vice versa. A lousy leader took a good store down the tank too. And that's interesting to me. They did it with a lot more than 4 stores to prove it, because they were scared that this can't be right. Because it didn't make logical sense. There had to be a neighborhood reason, a competitive reason, something like that. Not one person. The store manager can't have that big impact. The answer is yes, they can, and they do. Walmart, Walgreens found the same thing. And you see a difference in our market between 3 Walmarts. We've got Pioneer Road, we've got Telegraph Road, and we've got Hurricane in close proximity, and those 3 stores have different personalities. In fact, some of you drive out of your way not to go to one of those stores. And I won't say out loud that you're avoiding Telegraph, but it could be that's the one. And what's up with that? Walmart is Walmart, right? Their product line is very similar from store to store. The neighborhoods are very similar from neighborhood to neighborhood. Here in St. George, it's all a bubble bath. Here we don't have a ghetto in St. George. We don't have a bad neighborhood. So how could the stores be so different? And I've seen their financials. Their financials are that different. The same stores are just as you would expect as wanting to attend them. The ones you want to avoid are the ones that are not performing so well. And they're banking a lot of money on that and I'll just talk about Walmart for a second, because I got off on the goat trail there, and once you go down a rabbit hole, you can't come back out. So we'll just finish it up there. If you notice, if you've been there in the last 3 months or so, it's been under construction or destruction, right? And what they've done is they've successfully squeezed all the aisles closer together. So 2 carts can't pass in the aisles. Now you really don't want to go there. But what they have done, go to the back left side of the store, and all of a sudden, Tire Lube and Oil Express, which was right there in that corner, it didn't move at all, but there's a long hallway, and Tire Lube Express is way down there. They made the store smaller. Walk down that hallway, there's a door. Look in the door. It's a big warehouse. Empty space filling up, excuse me, with pallets. What's going on there? How is Walmart trying to save that store? By making it less comfortable for me to shop there. How are they trying to save that store?
Keep the shelves stocked.
We're watching in real time as they are going to e-commerce. And so that space there is space to satisfy local buyers that are phoning ahead or ordering online and picking up at the store. They come to that spot. And all of a sudden there's square footage that didn't used to be dedicated to that at all, that they're betting on, that they can take a 10 years too late run at Amazon. Right? So that's the kind of strategy we're talking about in this class. Are they right or are they wrong? I don't know yet, because that one, the jury's still out. We're going to watch. We'll see what happens. I'm fearful. Walmart's still the biggest corporation in the world, and they would be a tough competitor, but we see Target has taken a strong left turn from Walmart. They were copying Walmart for many years. And Target was marketing to a 35-year-old white American woman. Female. That was the target market for Target. And is it now? They've changed their strategy. They've taken a left turn. They're still targeting younger customers than Walmart is. You can see that. Their prices have gone up. They're no longer looking at price point. They're looking at fashion point. Still looking at female in that sense. But they're looking not at white anymore. They're looking at a more blended marketplace, wisely enough, because guess what happened to suburban America? It became blended, right? It was a period of time when it wasn't. But the facts are, and I don't want to get in trouble on diversity here. We'll talk about diversity later. That's not my objective. It's a reality of the markets that we're in, right? And so we can watch some of these ploys unfold right before our eyes, right here in St. George. And so we'll talk about it from time to time. Some of you were in my class for a while. Remember we talked about what's going on at Kmart? We called that one before it shut down, right? We knew that one's closed. How could you tell? Just walk in the front door. You don't need to be a stock analyst to look at the Kmart's sucking wind. You don't have to look at their numbers. You look at their store. And we did. We talked about it. So we'll continue to talk about stuff like that in this class over the next 3 months while we're talking about how to run a business, because we've got examples all over. Starbucks is another one right now. Starbucks is in a reset in St. George. This is my opinion. I don't have that from Starbucks. I still have stock in Starbucks. I'm not saying they're a bad investment nationally. In this market, who's beating them? Dutch Brothers Coffee. Where did that come from? Where did the Starbucks didn't even see it coming, and they didn't position themselves against them, and they weren't ready. And what were long lines at all 3 Starbucks stores here in town are now a ghost town. They still have Tesla recharging stations, and Dutch Brothers Coffee does not yet. But that's only going to be a minute, right? It's going to be, and Dutch Brothers Coffee somehow is killing them in this market. So we would ask ourselves, is that partly our fault if we're Starbucks? Do we have the wrong management? Do we have the wrong connection with the market here? What are we doing wrong? Because let me tell you something, I'm a coffee drinker, and here we go. I usually have a cup of Starbucks with me, and there's my cup of Starbucks with me. Guess what? Dutch Brothers Coffee does not brew coffee. It's a coffee store that doesn't make coffee. Are you kidding me? They sell sugar and syrup, right? And all kinds of other stuff, and they do a pour over and stuff like that, but they don't brew a cup of coffee. So a coffee shop that's by name only, right? And they're killing it. They're doing fabulous in this market, and so we will talk about why later on. I got to get out of the rabbit hole. Let's meet Jim Collins.
It is a
I'm sorry.
It is a well-intentioned idea, but the wrong idea. To say that the path to greatness for any social enterprise is that it should become more like a business. And there's a reason for that. Because if you think about it, most businesses, like most of anything else in life, are, by definition, average. So why would we want to export the practices of average businesses to your world and to make you average? No. The real question is not the difference between business and social, but between great and good. A culture of discipline, disciplined people who engage in disciplined thought and who take disciplined action. This is not a business idea. This is a greatness idea. The principles of the flywheel and the hedgehog concept and the right people on the bus, these are not business ideas. These are ideas of what separates a great institution from a good one. You will find a culture of discipline in the 82nd Airborne under level 5 leaders like Lieutenant General Lloyd Austin. You will find a culture of discipline in the Cleveland Symphony Orchestra when it assembles to play an absolutely perfect Mahler Symphony number 5 that goes in your ears, down your spine, gives you goosebumps, makes you cry, and you cannot sleep. You will find a culture of discipline. And Lance Armstrong's cycling team systematically crushing competitors for 7 consecutive tours. You will find a culture of discipline. In the greatest public schools who manage to deliver educational results no matter what the circumstances, you will find a culture of discipline. In any truly great enterprise, and you will not find it in the average.
Okay, this is Jim Collins. We got another clip I'm going to let you ask you to watch as well. This is his office today. He came from Stanford. He lives in Boulder, Colorado. We will get to know him and his wife just a little bit. This is an old converted school. by the University of Colorado in Boulder. You can drive there from here in just a few, 10 hours, whatever it is, to get to Denver. But his office is up on the second floor of that school in the back corner. I've been there. You can go there. His team is working on stuff most of the time. He's approachable, and he's brilliant, in my opinion. The guys that get professorships at Stanford usually are, and he's no exception. And so while we can't have him here teaching us, we can learn from what he's written. He's one of my favorite business authors. He wrote books about every 5-6 years, and we're starting with the oldest one, and we're going to get to the newest one because stuff has happened. And some of the companies that he called great tanked. And we go, what happened? Circuit City is an example. Circuit City in Good to Great is a great company. And Circuit City today is gone. And I can talk to you about, the day it happened, before they knew it happened, we saw it coming. It was a Thursday. It was a Thursday morning. And I can tell you what Circuit City did in their boardroom that cost them their company. And we'll talk about it because it's like, none of us would have made that mistake. I'm telling you, it wasn't a genius PhD business school thing. It was a bonehead move that Circuit City made that cost them their entire public company. Unbelievable. After being at the top of the world in Jim Collins' assessment. So this is Jim, one more clip, and then we are going to be just a little past the break time. You don't have to, we'll watch this, I think it's 10 minutes. So we'll watch this clip and then we'll take a break.
Welcome to Boulder, Brian.
It's great to be here.
Well, tell me a little bit about, I'd like to hear a thumbnail of where you are at the United Way and the challenges that your local leaders face.
We went through a lot of assessment and went through whether we could be a fundraising federation or a community fundraiser, and finally got back to our roots and said, we really exist to improve people's lives, and we're at a point where we're trying to get a real clear roadmap around execution.
When you stand back and you compare great organizations to good ones, there's a number of different stages, if you will, that you look at. As we took our research, we are always looking at companies that had great results in contrast to companies that didn't have great results. And in some cases they were shifts, in some cases they had them all the way along. But that development had 4 basic stages. The first stage was about getting disciplined people. The second stage was about having disciplined thought. The third stage was about having disciplined action. And then the fourth stage was about really building it to last, making the greatness last. Now here's what's interesting. Given what you just said, I actually want to start with the fourth stage first for the moment. Because in many ways, we're really not talking about a company or an organization that needs to become great. We're really working with an organization that has historically been great. And we're trying to get back to, in a modern and a new era, the key things that make us truly great. So let's start with stage 4 first. Now, what's interesting in what you said, when you look at really great institutions, really great companies, they understand the difference at a very deep level between what is truly a core value or a core purpose, a core mission, as distinct from a strategy, a practice, a mechanism. And that as they evolve, they will go back and they will change the practices and strategies and mechanisms to get back to the roots of what they're about. Let's just use a corporate example for a moment. When Lou Gerstner came into IBM, he did not say, what we need to do is abolish the past. What we need to do is to tear everything down and start all over again. What he said was, we have to change lots of things, but we first have to be clear about what is truly the core deep DNA of this institution, and that our main problem is not that though that deep original DNA is in our way. Our main problem is we've strayed from it. That one of IBM's key early principles was the idea that the customer comes ahead of the products. IBM had inverted it to that the products came ahead of the customer. IBM used to think of it as that respect for the individual was central, that was always driven by individual people doing remarkable things. They inverted it to, it became more about the system than about the people. And when Lou Gerstner came in, he said, we need almost the equivalent of being Martin Luther. We need a reformation of this place, but a reformation back to the roots of what it was all about in the first place. We're going back to the original principles, but now to live them in a new way. That was the secret of Lou Gerstner's transformation of IBM. United Way is very similar. This is a company that has the deep roots. And in many ways, if you could kind of think as of the great success with fundraising as like the mainframe computers. Mainframe computers were not what IBM was about. They would just happen to be a very successful strategy. And after a while, IBM began to think that it was about mainframe computers. But it wasn't about mainframe computers. It was about doing great things for customers with these great individual employees and doing it with great superiority. That's what it was about. Mainframes just happened to be the means. Well, now what you're doing is the same thing. Your fundraising mechanisms were your mainframe computers. You're not about mainframe computers. You're about the original DNA. And it's wonderful for me to hear you say that we're going back to our roots. What this has always been about is an impact on the lives of people in communities, individual, local communities. How do the people in Denver have a better life? Whatever their issues are, it's community by community by community, impact on life by life by life. Fundraising is simply a means. Many of the key parts of your model make sense. The way you think about them needs to change.
Okay, two things before we go on break. First of all, you talked about IBM. Let's talk about IBM for a second. IBM was started last century. Right, long time. IBM's been around a long time. What was IBM's product? What does IBM stand for?
Phones in the beginning.
Before that. IBM stands for International Business Machines. What they were was accountant, bookkeeper, calculators that went on their desk. Punch keys, it was a machine that gave tape spit out like an adding machine. A little bit a company one, but that's what it was. 1920s, 1930s, we got electricity. IBM came up with another product. Anybody know what it was?
Computer.
No, before computers. IBM owned the typewriter business. IBM owned the adding machine business, and they added to the adding machine a typewriter. Because the adding machine only had numbers, typewriter had letters, right? And they were mechanical. And somewhere in that period, they invented an electric typewriter. And it was called the IBM Selectric, and every office in the United States had an IBM A, B, or C model Selectric typewriter. They had a little ball instead of those striker things that went like that. Most of you haven't seen a typewriter ever, but they owned the world market with electric typewriters. Well, it wasn't long they started coming up with memory typewriters that would, so you wouldn't have to retype certain words. They had a little memory stick, not like what you and I think of as a memory stick, but they had a little memory chip in the electric typewriter that would retype a sentence or two, or eventually a whole page it would retype, so you could type the same letter to more than one person and just keep spitting new pages of the same thing out on this thing. And that's pretty close to a computer, right? It's not, but it's pretty close to a computer. They decided typewriters are going to die. They're going to be replaced with computers. So let's go into the computer business. There's where they went into the computer. World dominant in adding machines, world dominant in typewriters. They left both markets. Then they went into the computer business. Not just any computer business. I learned to program on an IBM 360. The IBM 360 was the size of this room. And it read punch cards. Stacks and stacks and stacks of punch cards. You've seen them. You probably know how to program them. Even though you and I may be the only ones left that know how to program. And we were speaking programming languages that don't exist anymore. Fortran, Pascal, COBOL, RPG, lots more. I can't even remember them all. You can name a bunch of them. Y'all could name a bunch of them, right? And they built this big computer, and America said, and they sold them. They dominated the mainframe computer business in the world. Every bank had an IBM 360 or an equivalent model. Every bank. And there were no competitors. The computer industry was called Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Snow White was IBM, and there was no other company that made computers that could hold a candle to IBM. They owned the computer market. This is 1960. Then they came up with an IBM Model 38 because the world said, we can't afford a mainframe computer. We want to buy a computer that's the size for our business. They called them mini computers. and they were the size of a closet, not the size of this room, and the price tag that went down with it, and you could buy mass 90, or you could buy pre-programmed packages without hiring your own programmers to run these computers, and that took us through the 1950s into the 60s into the 1970s. Then we all wanted a computer on our desk, right? So IBM said, we're not going to make minis anymore. They stopped making mainframes, they stopped making mini computers, and they started making desktop computers. And they were flat this way. Your monitor sat on top of them. You can see them at the DI every now and then. They're collector items on eBay. And they used an old 8088 or 8086 chipset that Alan Bradley still uses, by the way, which they shouldn't. That's industrial control stuff, which Luke does in spades, which is why I'm pointing. You haven't met him yet. We're gonna do introductions when we come back from our break. So IBM exited that business, and they invented what? The IBM ThinkPad. Some of you have one. It's a notebook computer, a laptop computer, right? And so they exited the desktop computer business, sold it off actually, and they started with and at the same time of that was going on, IBM took a dab at the cell phone business. How'd they do in cell phones? They got out real fast because they couldn't own the business worldwide. They owned the business worldwide for every of those things I was telling you. They made a management decision to exit the business. And sometimes management decisions are made like that. Walgreens was the #1 seller of liquor in the United States. Sold more vodka, whiskey, tequila than anybody else in the United States. Walgreens. And Walgreens made a decision one day. They said, that's attracting the market that's not our target market. We want the old ladies that are buying $1,000 worth of drugs every month for their doctor to come feel comfortable coming in our store, and they don't like walking past the liquor store except for the ones that are sauces. Right? There are a few of those old ladies that drink a lot. But most of them don't. And Walgreens said that's against our target market. We are going to exit the liquor business. Now, since that decision, there's a few corporate stores in strategic locations where they've added it back in. Ours is not one of them. And Walgreens in our world doesn't have liquor. In other worlds, it's a major footprint in their store. And it was, they had more liquor sales than anybody else. So IBM made a decision to exit the laptop business. And what does IBM do today? IBM does not manufacture anything. They are bigger than they have ever been. They were world leaders in every market I just told you, but they made a decision before the customer made a decision for them to exit that market. They exited when it was sellable, when they could spin it off. The one you know right now is they spun off ThinkPad. The brand still exists. IBM does not make it. They sold it to Lenovo. And so Lenovo has nothing to do with IBM, but they have the platform of IBM technology, IBM boards, and IBM know-how. They bought the business from IBM. IBM wiped their hands of it. They don't make anything today. What does IBM do?
Communication?
Communications in the sense of point of sales at stores. They do the knowledge, the connection to the software. They write software. They don't manufacture anything, no hardware at all. They buy all the hardware from Alibaba or someplace. I don't know where they buy it from, but somewhere they get it. And they don't make anything. That's a strategy that a blue chip stock, I'll show you their stock performance. You'll see it in the book. That company has never tanked. He said Gerstner turned them around. He turned them around before they fell. Turned them around to take the next plateau, to get out of the hardware business, which was all they were known for. So that is one thing I want to talk about. The other thing I want to talk about is the book Good to Great. The first sentence in this book, I believe, is 6 words. Can you find the first chapter 1, the first sentence of that book, and read it to us, please? And some ground rules are, while Jill is finding page 1, because there's probably prologues and all kinds of stuff to get to page 1. A ground rule in this class will be, if I call on you and you're on a mini vacation or just don't want to say anything at the time, just pass. Nobody gets in trouble for passing at any point in time. If I catch you at a moment, that's how it always happens. I don't mean to, but you just kind of thought another idea, that something we just talked about, and I caught you at a bad time. So if you pass, it may mean your mouth is full of chips. I don't know. and that's fine. We didn't talk about cell phone rules. I put mine, I think, on stun, and we prefer you to do that in class, but I understand everybody has families, everybody has jobs, and you may be needed to be contacted. Leave your phone so you can be contacted, and if you get a call, please just not try to disrupt. Step out, take your call, do your business that you need to be. That's not a foul at all. In fact, I'll ask you sometimes to look stuff up in class. Somebody Google that, because I'm not sure I got the data right or whatever. And so I'll ask you, you can certainly use your phone. Did you find page 1?
Yeah.
What's the first sentence?
Good is the enemy of great.
Chew on that for a while. Good is the enemy of great. What's the enemy of great?
Good.
Good. How can good be the enemy of great? Explain that.
You get comfortable.
Okay, you get comfortable, Larry? You started to say something.
Because it's not great.
I'm good.
Yeah, but it's not great.
It's not good, but we're good. So we're good.
Can be better?
We don't get better because we're already good. It's like we don't need to work on that. We need to work on what's broken. But we're not great. And you're saying that. You're going, yeah, good, okay. If that's good enough for them, that's not good enough for my company. Are you going to win a Super Bowl if you're good? No, you're only going to win a Super Bowl if you're great. And you got to build a team that's on top of the game. Wilding Wallbeds isn't the only person in that game. There's competitors out there that want your business and are doing everything they can to get your business. And you got to spin off at Wilson Electronics that's trying to get your business. In fact, a couple of those people used to work for you guys. And Stuart Awning's got the same thing. Somebody used to work for you guys, a family, and now you got to compete in the marketplace. And how do you do that in the business? And how do you take the high road? Good is the enemy of great. I want to be great. And that's what this class is going to be about. I overran break time by 11 minutes. Take a break. Be back in about 10 if you can. We'll do some introductions, and we'll be on the final stretch. Thank you all. Bathrooms. We didn't tell you where they were. You got to find them. They're tough. There's one stall of boy and one stall of girl right around the corner to the left. And then if you go over past the boardroom, there's a real bathroom for both. That's got multiple partitions and whatever it is you have in a bathroom. No showers. Yeah. This is proof that sunblock works.
Yeah.
I was planning on wearing a hat. Put the hat on.
I was hoping it would be a side effect of what happened.
No, it wasn't. That was interesting. If that's, I learned a lot about it. Yeah, this one, it stung me because I picked it up. It was on my stairs from downstairs to upstairs. I thought it was a piece of cardboard. I reached down, picked it up, and it felt like I'd stuck my finger in a socket. And it felt that way for days. And it went numb to here. Well, that was where it started. Went numb to here. Then went numb here. It went numb, but it's gradual. It went, and the final, the worst it got, the highest it got, my bicep was numb, but my tricep was numb. And these two fingers never went numb. So I got different wiring somewhere. Maybe it's wrong wiring. But what the doctor had said, because I didn't know what to do, and I reached out and said, because I identified the scorpion as the bathroom. It's the Arizona bark scorpion, and they're the most 2 out of 10 that get stung by them. But there's always data behind the data. The data behind the data is they commonly sting babies in cribs, and they usually can't survive it. And then old people in bed, and if they get stung about the head. So what happened here? My guys at the other job said that it was migrating the toxins. It's a neurotoxin, and it was migrating through my lymph system, which is slow. It is connected to everything, but it absorbs into the tissues around the nodes. And so as it seeped up, it never got into my cardiovascular system. So if you get bit somewhere where it's near a blood vessel, and that toxin that numbed here, if that numbs your heart, you're done. And if it gets up here and it numbs your brain, you're done. And so it was where I got stung that made it not a big deal. I mean, I still can't type because I can't feel that. That's been 2 weeks. So, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it for anybody. at all.
Next time you use a vacuum.
Yeah, I just don't pick up the trash, just let it stay. I need to hire somebody for that. How are you on your Thursday? You okay tonight? We've got it figured out, so we can, yeah. Good, and you didn't put a name tag up.
I did not.
You're staying under the radar?
No.
You're Denver?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought probably you were based on who I didn't have name tags for. Welcome.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're here.
I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah, that's cool. So did you get this signed up from everybody? No. Yes.
Yeah.
Here.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's what I wanted to make sure. Okay, good. Everybody's on there. So which group of companies are you involved with?
So I'm the general manager of Papa John's, and the company, I guess, the franchise company is WEU Consultants.
WEU Consultants?
Yeah.
And are they here or were they in California?
Cedar City.
Oh, they're in Cedar. Okay. With
Yeah.
the rest of the Levitts, huh?
In a sense.
Keep it home.
Right?
Yeah.
That,
Okay.
it's pretty dang close to with them.
That's cool. That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you have one store, or you have how many stores here?
So there's 3. There's Cedar City, St. George, and Washington.
Okay.
And then I'm the general manager of St. George.
Okay. That's got to be a lot of fun, not?
It
I
can
mean,
be.
It's got its moments, I'm sure, like all
Yeah.
businesses do. But that one is when you are in the front line of a service industry.
Mhm.
You deal with more upset customers than you do happy
Yeah.
ones, and that makes your job hard. Because now you've got employees that are intentionally or unintentionally burning down your customer, and then it comes up to you, and you got to deal with it.
Yeah, I usually, lately what I've been trying to do is, because with COVID-19 hitting us, it skyrocketed our business like about 25%.
Yeah.
And I just try to level with them in a sense. I'm not sure if it works all the time, but
Well-
I tried to say, hey, I understand where you're coming from. Listen to what they have to say, because a lot of times they just want to be heard. And then I just
True.
let them know that, on our end, maybe what happened. But that's the one hard part, especially too for the customer service end, is especially whenever you're getting a rating from a corporate store to us or something like that. A lot of the time they look at that, and it sometimes can be difficult because it's just like a lot of the people that want to go online probably are going to be the negatives. But one thing we try and do is we always say if if you go on there and put whatever, you can put a good review, you can put a bad review, doesn't really matter, just put a review, we'll give you a free sandwich. So
That helps. There's real issue. We'll talk in class, knowing that you've got that, and you're not going to be the only one in the room. Customer satisfaction indexes. The automotive industry has them and pioneered them pretty much. They don't work,
yeah.
and it's. We'll talk about that because you have to deal with it because you don't control it.
Mhm.
It's given to you from it's a scorecard for the franchise owner in more than it is the store delivery. Because a lot of the stuff when there's service failure, it's often not the result of the employee. I'll give you an example. I was at Sonic over the weekend.
Okay.
Sonic has been bought by you guys or Caesar, Little Caesars.
Pizza Hut.
Oh, it's Pizza Hut that got him? Okay.
That's Yum brand.
Yeah, okay. And the local franchise has been bought by a franchise owner out of California.
Okay.
And then there's a Salt Lake subcomponent of them that just bought them. So this store's under new management. They've already had a store fail in this market.
Okay.
And so this one, this is midday on Saturday that I
Yeah.
was there, and their system was crashed. And so on their drive-through, they were telling people, we can't take your order right now. If you want to order online, you can. We can make they didn't say the rest of it. We can make a sandwich, we can make your order, but we just can't enter it in our computer this way. You have to do it online. Well, that was not the fault of the store.
Mhm.
The store manager, I talked to her because I said, you're in the middle of a forest fire here. This thing is
Oh, yeah.
on fire bad.
Oh.
And
That sounds.
she's going, I've asked for the budget. They won't upgrade our software. We've got no dollars, and we can't fix it. And so there you've got a failure and then then what's a CSI score going to do?
Yeah.
It's going to burn down the store,
Yeah.
and it's the owner that needs to get it.
Yeah.
You know, and so what do you do? We'll talk about that.
Thursday, I will. I have attendance.
So we're going to recommend that with video, and I'll communicate with you with cover, so that you get the set of points and maybe an assignment that says, hey, what do you think of? And it can be something that you're able to look at before we I want to know what it is. This is so interesting. I talked to Maddie about it, and I'm really glad you're here. It's even fun. A chance to let you know that you're in the moment.
Yeah,
You know,
sure.
and how cool is it that you've got positive things going on. I mean, that's, managing growth. It's so hard by a lot to manage turnarounds. Also, because in a turnaround, you get everybody's attention. And you're in growth mode. It's like herding cats. And there's more ways to screw up than there is to get it right. That's really hard. But it's cool. It's rewarding. You know, you don't have the same kind of stress. It's different. Just do it. Execute. Right. Yeah. Okay. Suck it up. But having the opportunity. Get a chance.
Sounds good.
Is this going to be in this classroom? I
Yes.
assume So it'd be, is it permanently going to be here?
Yes. Did I have an error there still? Oh, yeah, I do.
No.
I didn't update that. Yep.
Alright.
All of you, your syllabus has the wrong classroom. We are going to be in this classroom until they throw us out for misbehavior or whatever it is that we do. All right, we are, I believe, all back. Thank you. We are going to introduce each other. I'm going to ask you to interview each other. Let me get to. Some of you know each other already, and some of you do not, but I want to make sure that we don't miss this part on day one. So we'll continue with the textbook introductions at another time. Right now, I want to wake up my computer. We'll look at this one right here. What I want you to do is we're going to kind of mix up this way. I'm going to randomly pair everybody. We got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 13. You missing somebody? Larry, yeah, 14. I thought we had 14 in here. So we'll go in groups of 2, and you'll interview somebody that you do not work with. So we've got 5 people in the room from Wilson, so you don't interview each other, because you already know each other. So I'm not going to sign who you're going to interview. I'll let you kind of get up and mill around and do that. Here are the questions you are going to ask each other. What their name is, if they have a company that they're affiliated with, I'd like to know that. If you're a full-time student, that's fine, and I'd like to know that. Looking at leadership experience, and I recognize that we've had leadership experience all of our lives. You know, you might have been a hall monitor in 3rd grade or something. You know, that's leadership. And so, let us know a little bit about leadership, what your hobbies are. If you could go to dinner with anybody in any time era, who would it be and why? So I want you to ask those questions of the person that you interview. And then and then they're going to ask you the same questions. And then once everybody has interviewed everybody else, we will have each one of you introduce the person you interviewed. Okay? So you don't have to come up front. I will ask the person that's being introduced to stand up at that point in time. But you're going to do the talking. They're not. They're just going to stand there and look stupid. That's not the deal. That's not the objective. All right, so pair up, if you would please. Wilson guys raise your hand so the rest of the people in the know that you guys can't, and so you need to mingle with these guys over here till we've got that matched up, and then the rest of you can go anyway, okay? So spread out, find a partner. You can leave the room to some chairs out there if you want to. Don't take too long.
You're the guy, man. Oh yeah, me too.
I'll just scoot over.
Me too.
I'll go ahead. What's your name?
Okay, you got Francisco? All right, Luke, take Angie back there. Angie, come up here with Luke.
So obviously you work with Wilson. What do you do then?
And do you have somebody, Brad? Yeah. Hold on a second.
Okay.
How did this happen? Oh, Larry's not back. You got Larry. Is Larry coming back?
Yeah, he's coming back.
Okay. So you get away, you get a chill till Larry. So you can think of your answers.
Okay. Yeah. How long have you been there for?
15 years.
13. Long time.
Yeah, I start from the beginning, now I'm in this farm. So I start from the bottom and kind of go up.
Yeah. So, but was that your first job?
No, I worked in air conditioning before, and actually I came to do a class in Dixie Tech for AC technician, so I'm certified too. I work part-time.
You still do part-time ACs?
Yes.
Really? With who?
I started with this last week with quality air.
Okay.
So I started working with them.
Yeah. Where are you from? Mexico? What part of Mexico?
Southwest Mexico City. You never hear about football?
Tell me about it.
Southwest, it's just very common place for teammates. But it's just Southwest Mexico City, but Pacific. It's a very common place for tourists. So next time you have a trip, I'm sure you stop by to football.
How long, I mean, how old were you when you moved out of Mexico?
I was
19.
You were supposed to find somebody to interview.
You got it right here. Larry and Brad are
You
interviewing.
said Georgia.
Okay. Walk him through what he
a little bit up north. I live in
Yeah. What finally made you decide to kind of like start doing Dixie Tech? After 13 years at Wilson.
Well, I hear that they have a class for leadership, and because I have a small group, my team, I want to make sure I get some skills, learn some stuff. They think I'm a good teacher too, so we'll see. But my boss told me that it was really come and learn, and I take it because I think I need any social leadership so I can help and I can help myself.
Yeah, 100%. I get that. So, dinner choice, who do you pick? Who would you, for anybody you could have sit down with dinner with in the whole world, even like in the past, who would you sit down and eat with?
How I sit down? Well, that's a good question. You can see how a lot of people they wish to talk to. I don't know, it depends on what field you want, emotional and family.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because you know a lot of people that you like to talk to, even depends on anything you like to hear or do.
Oh, I get that. I got the same thing going on. Like, figuring out whether I should do somebody like a family member that I didn't really know that well, and I want maybe to figure out more about them if they passed away, or do somebody that's like famous, like Alexander the Great or something like that. It's kind of a hard decision.
So a couple people are done, and a couple people haven't switched yet. So if you haven't switched, switch and interview the other one.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Your name again?
Denver.
Denver. Okay, put it up because I remember.
Razor Ride.
Company. Denver, what's your last name?
Love it. Take off the iron and you're good. And then I work for Papa John's. I'm a general manager there.
You know what? I like something else.
Hey, that's what I like to hear. Tell me.
Hey, so I hope you give me a good deal next time I go over there.
You bet I will.
Yeah, actually, I love Papa John's. Sometimes the reason I don't go is because my kids did too, but I have to stuck with two.
But
I got stuck with little sisters.
Now you got an excuse to come there. It'll be the same price as them.
Yeah, true. So this is one of the things I like. I have to try again. But I like Papa John's. A lot better. Okay, so you know Papa John's. So what did you just say? You're a manager, right?
Yeah.
So what else did you have experience of?
I've worked there for about 4 years now. Before that, I mean, I started there. I'm 22, and I started there whenever I was 18 as a delivery driver. And I went to Dixie State University. I mean, I from Kansas City, and I came here to go to college. I know.
Kansas, you know, I used to have a teacher and air conditioning and say, he's from Kansas. And I was like, oh, in Kansas. Oh, in Kansas.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, it was tired. It's like, okay, go Kansas.
There's nothing really to do with Kansas. The only thing that Kansas has got is you got sports.
Yeah.
You got good sports team, that's about it.
It's like he was doing everything in Kansas, and you know, everybody in the class is like, okay, it kind of tries like Kansas, but that's why I get stuck with Kansas, you know, because everything was in Kansas. Because he was our teacher, he said, well, we want to live in here, not in Kansas, because, you know, the elevation and all that kind of stuff is a little different. But anyway, so you go to Dixie, now you go to
So I then decided to come to GM of Pop John's. I mean, the opportunity arose, and I said, why not? You know, and I became the GM, and then I was still doing classes at Dixie State, and then COVID hit, and a lot of employees were lost because this employee COVID. So I then was having to do, like instead of I just had to start doing a lot more hours. So I didn't really have a lot of time to do anything else besides that.
So what you hobby?
Say that again? Hobbies? I play soccer every once in a while. Yeah, I play on the bluff. You know where? You know,
2 minute warning.
You know the Bluff Street soccer games on Sunday.
With the Latino one? Oh, you better get him. You know?
I love playing.
Good and tough because those guys, I played a long time ago. And I said, you know what, forget it. You can keep your stuff, man.
Sometimes you get a little feisty. And, like, I used to have this huge afro, and I'd come in there and be the white guy with the huge afro, and everybody would be like, what in the heck is this guy doing? But no, I love doing that. I guess if I had to choose a dinner choice, it'd probably be, I mean, just because it's kind of popping in my head, I haven't really thought about it until just now. It's probably like my great grandpa. I didn't really know him that well. I just have like 1 or 2 memories of him, I think.
You know, I was thinking the same thing when
Yeah.
really, I was thinking, because he died when I was still younger, and I didn't spend too much time with him when I was little. So, but actually, it has his name too.
All right, 2 minutes is up. And if you don't have all the answers to a scramble and a Hail Mary, you should be able to come up with it.
Same thing.
We are going to start with whoever would like to go first. Kenward, you're up. Okay. Who are you going to introduce? Andrew, stand up, please. Everybody pay attention here. Andrew is being introduced.
It's Andrew. He works at welding, wall beds. He's a shop manager. He's been at the company for 15 years. He's been in leadership role for 12 years now at the same company. He manages 50 employees. He agreed to a day shift and a night shift. He likes video games, more PC side. And the dinner section, he wants to go to dinner with a guy named, or an old friend named Todd, which is a life coach and a leader.
Okay.
From his life.
Excellent. All right, let's clap. Thank you. Let's go back to Francisco, and let's go this way, come back to this way, and then we'll come down this way. Okay? You're up. Who are you introducing? Brenda, stand up.
Okay. So this is Brenda. It's female. Yeah. So I said right. She works for Wilson Electronics. She worked there for about 10 years.
Okay.
She's a Q Tech, and some of her hobbies are yoga, hiking, and shopping. Her favorite food is ceviche. I didn't know we were supposed to put food. But she says she likes it because she likes seafood.
Okay. That's an interpretation of my directions. Thank you. Let's everybody clap. Okay. Brenda, who are you introducing?
Francisco Cardinal. Okay. And he works at Jet Civil, and he's an operator and laborer. And he likes to do outdoor stuff and camping and hiking. His favorite food is steak dinner because it's steak and it's the main food.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So a little more. Francisco has been with St. George Steel for the last few years in maintenance. Their equipment, which is pretty heavy duty. They can bend a plate of steel this thick and all that kind of stuff. And every now and then you'll see him with a rodeo belt on. So there's stories behind that. If you're liking that, you can ask him about that as well. Okay, Leandro.
This is Eric.
Okay.
He works for Stewart Army. He's got experience in warehouses, construction. He worked for Pepsi before joining Stewart Army. He likes doing outdoor stuff, camping and fishing. And he would like to have dinner with Guy Fieri because he can show him all the good food spots.
All right. Okay, that works. Good job. Thank you. All right, Eric, who are you going to introduce?
Leandro.
Okay, stand up.
He also works at Wilson Electronics for all these guys. He does the quality department. I used to do windows over at Viracon, then went to Wilson Electronics and did the refurbished department, and then I was a team leader. His hobbies are soccer, and for his dinner, he would like to go with Lionel Messi, which is his favorite soccer player, and would be to get a perspective, an athlete's perspective on life, and to get his opinion on things.
See, that would be interesting. Good job. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you.
All right. I'm interviewing Jill Hunt here. She works for owns Buddy Mail Advertising here in St. George. She started that in 2014, January 2014, and it's branched out. It's a little business that's branched out to other areas here in Utah, Cedar City, Mesquite, Kanab, and Central Utah. She has some previous managerial leadership experience. She managed Chick-fil-A when she was 18, and as well as a bank teller when she was 19. She has a journalism degree, and she used to be a reporter here in St. George. And for dinner, she'd like to have dinner with the founding fathers of Cracker Barrel.
Founding fathers at
Cracker. Sorry. To get their opinions and thoughts about the country today and what they think that they would do.
Well, that'd be an interesting dinner for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Jill, who are you introducing?
So I'm introducing Jake Smith.
Hang on a second. Time out for 1 second. I didn't know you started your company.
Yes.
That's incredible. We'll talk more about starting companies. That's a big leap, and they mostly fail in 5 years. You've passed that.
Thank you.
Thumbs up. Yeah. Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Jake Smith. He is customer service and installation manager at Evolving Well Beds, and has been there for 16 and a half years. He has, let's see, he helps with customer service experiences, trains of installers, customer service team, oversees deliveries and installations, which they go nationwide. People, if you don't know what Lot and Wall does, it's like a Murphy bed. That's very cool. They have a show in here in St. Louis. You guys should check it out. If you've never been in there. And so his hobbies are riding bikes. He has a 29-inch BMX bike that he loves to ride local trails with. He also loves computers. And if he could have dinner with anyone, he would have pizza with no fruit or veggies. And if he could have dinner with Ivan Moody or Rob Zombie, he's a metalhead, so he thinks those would be interesting conversations.
How about that? That would be quite interesting. You know, you might. We get sometimes surprised by our people that we know in one area. Who would think that Mick Jagger is one of the best investment advisors there is? You know, he's had enough money that he's had to invest, and he's become really good at it. And you wouldn't think that if you're going to interview the Rolling Stones. You might get a Rob Zombie surprise too. Who knows? That'd be kind of cool. Larry, you're up.
I'm introducing Brad Holmes. Company he works for is Foresight Property Management. His job is a maintenance supervisor. Experiences in policy, fire safety, restaurant, and sorry my eyes are not what they used to be. Hobbies, car detail, HVAC, social nightclubs, dinner, Elon Musk, why get some insight and the thought to rags to riches.
Yeah, good job. You stole my guy though. That's what I'd like to have dinner with him too. Okay, we're at Andrew.
All right, I'd like to introduce you to Ken Work, goes by Ken. He works for Wilson Electronics. He does quality assurance. He is the supervisor. He's been the supervisor in that department for 4 years. He's been at Wilson for 18. He started at the very bottom in warehouse, moved stuff around, and he went from warehouse to being cross-trained in all the departments there. We call them floaters, able to help wherever needed, whenever needed. Been a production lead for 7 years, then he went into Q&A, and he is the quality assurance supervisor mainly over the machines versus people. In his free time, he likes to do razor rides or side-by-sides, hit the trails, get a little dusty. And for who he would like to have dinner with, Steve. He's known Steve for quite a long time, and always great conversation.
Thank you. Good job. Okay, we are at Angie. Who are you introducing?
I'm introducing Luke.
Luke, stand up.
He's working at currently working at Dairy Farmers of America. He's been there for 2 years and a half. He also works at lead maintenance mechanics. He runs his own business, his own company for 7 years. And he likes steak for dinner. And he would like to have dinner with his dad.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, thank you. All right. Luke, who are you introducing?
I'm introducing Angie. She's
Angie,
also works
stand
at
up.
Wilson Electronics, and the whole half the class does. Also in quality control, half the class does. So she's been with Wilson Electronics for 13 years. She's now the lead, working on lead there. She's also worked at Cavitech, which I also worked at Cavitech, found out we worked together a few times. And she was at Cavitech, was the quality control at Cavitech for 11 years. And when Cavitech went under, she went to Wilson Electronics. Been around here for a while. For her hobby, she likes to just walk around, hang out with her kids. And she likes seafood, and especially lobster.
All right. Thank you. Okay. You're on.
Okay. I'll introduce Lambert Levitt. Lambert is from Kansas. Okay. and he works in Papa John's. He's a manager, but he started as a delivery guy when he was 18. Now he's 22. 4 years after, he's the manager. Actually, we'll make a deal with him already.
Okay.
I told him I love Papa John's, that they're expensive for my father. So he will make a deal for me. So there you go. So don't forget, everybody knows. Also, he's in Dixie University or whatever they call it now, and he's still his hobby. He like plays soccer with the top guys. He played with the Latinos, so he better be good then. Yes, it's tough over there. I played a long time ago, and tell me he might be good. If you survive playing with those guys, you're good. So, and also he would like to have dinner with his grandpa. I think he wants to learn more from him, and I think it's it. Huh?
Okay, thank you. Very good. So we know with Papa John's general manager here where we're going to have our celebrations at, right? And you know who you're going to tee up on soccer with. Yeah. Okay, you're up.
Okay, so this is Fernandez. He's worked at
Fortino.
Excuse me. Thank you.
Say it again.
Fortino.
Fortino.
Yes.
Okay. He's worked at Wilson Electric for 13 years, just like she did, and he has worked there. 13 years. He started there as a warehouse person.
No,
Production. Excuse me. And he's worked his way up. On the side, he is an electrician, right?
ABC, air conditioning.
Air conditioning. Excuse me. And he's from Mexico City. He moved out here whenever he was about 19 years old, and he's lived all over the place. You're saying even lived in Moroni, right?
I live up north, but it's too cold for me, so no way. It's too much snow. I don't like snow.
And whenever I asked him who he wanted to have dinner with, he was we both were thinking the same thing. We're like, man, I don't know if with a relative that we didn't really know that well, or some person that was, famous person like Warren Buffett or something like that. But at the end, we kind of both agreed that maybe a former relative of ours that we didn't really know that well.
Interesting choices. Very good. Thank you. All right, Brad, we're ending up with you. You are introducing?
Alrighty, this is Larry Stubbs. He works at Wilding Wall Beds. He's the night shift manager. He's been there for 11 years, and he did 12 years at with cabinets and countertops. He likes gaming, hunting, fishing, and if he could have dinner with anyone, it would be his father. He had an interesting military life and was a good storyteller.
Okay, very nice. All right, there's a couple things that I want to say. First of all, if there's one thing that matters most in leadership, I demonstrated it in the exercise you just did. Thank you all, by the way. Every one of you stood up in front of the whole group, and nothing bad happened. And every one of you said something and spoke to the whole group, and nothing bad happened. So this is a safe environment. We can learn to communicate. We'll become friends with each other. Many of you already are. I am friends with many of you, and we like to keep it that way so that we can learn here best practices. Isn't that what it's about? We're trying to do that. I'm delighted to hear that we've got 3 Cabinet Tech people here. They're a case study that I don't very often get to talk about because many people don't know what Cabinet Tech is. You guys can translate. I remember meeting you at Cabinet Tech, and I don't know if you remember meeting me or not, but I remember we're talking about one of the books, How the Mighty Fall. Cabinet Tech was the largest employer in St. George for many years, 450 employees. I remember the day I was at lunch with Sally Cox, whose husband Don was one of the owners of, Don had a stroke. Sally became operating officer of the company. I was at lunch with her in Las Vegas, and I remember the look in her eye when she quit. And that afternoon, they closed the plant. She called from the restaurant, and she was tired of fighting the attorneys and the financing and the things that were necessary to keep that business alive. That rocked St. George. 450 families, all of a sudden, unemployed. Didn't see it coming. They knew the company was struggling financially with getting orders together and getting quality system right and cost of rework, and they knew there were problems. There was a fatal error that the company made that's a decision prior to that. It involved an infrared heating system. We'll talk about that. Do you remember that one?
I did countertops for.
Oh, you did count. Okay, you guys were there. We'll talk about that because the events that led up to the failure of that company, if we know the people, they mean more. If we talk about, it happened here in our community, that means more. And I was involved with the company as a consultant to try to save it. And I don't know if we could have or couldn't have. It was too late when they got the team in. But when Sally gave up, her spirit was gone. She was done fighting. Turned the key, locked the door. And that should have been avoidable, right? And we could talk about a lot of the things that led to that. Some of you will know more than I know. As we bring things up in this class, there's a rule for confidentiality. Some of us will work for other companies or we know people in other companies. We need to make an agreement that what we talk about in this room stays in this room in the sense that I don't mean to offend anybody. I don't mean to say they made a bonehead move. They've got their life savings at stake. They didn't mean to make a bonehead move. And if I say it, I don't mean it that they're idiots. I say it that was a mistake, and we all make mistakes. And so as I talk about people, if they're people you know and love, let me know so I'll stop talking about them, first of all. and I will want to go to apologize to them personally if something that I've said is wrong. Because I'm reporting the stories as I know them from being involved, but there's always two sides to everything, right? And so my perspective is an outside looking in on all this, and there's an inside truth that's somewhere different from everybody's outside perspective. So understand that, respect that amongst us, and please, I don't mean to step on anybody's toes about an opinion or something. And vigorous discussion is something that Jim Collins says companies need, and so that's passionate a lot of times. That means that you think one thing and I think something else, and I embrace that as long as we don't fight, because we can have a difference of opinion. And when we look at conflict resolution, that's what it's going to be all about, is that difference of opinion. And welcoming it, because that's where innovation and better ideas come from as well. But back to my original statement. One of the first, most important things of leadership, I demonstrated in this, and you all noticed it. The most important thing, in my opinion, in leadership is clarity. Everybody needs to understand. And leaders lead to clarity. The fifth question on the interview that you were just asked to conduct, I never clarified. I thought I knew what I meant. But 20%, no more than that, 25% of you in this room interpreted it differently. I was not clear. Right? That's not a foul on your part. That's a foul on my part. The leader, I'm the leader of this class for the moment. It's my job to get clarity across. And when I don't, I've failed. That makes sense? And so that's the hardest thing in leadership to do, is to be clear with the people. Do the people know what you're doing? Do I know where the college president is headed right now? No, one's headed into retirement. There is an intern coming in, and there's going to be a long term coming in at some point, and none of us can guess what they want. And so it's not clear. And when it's not clear, our organization's not going to win a Super Bowl. But for us to win a Super Bowl, we have to be clear on what it is. And we saw a national champion basketball game a few weeks ago, some of you saw. National championship. And we saw clarity at halftime changing a strategy. And we saw a team come back from 16 points down at halftime, and that had never been done in 84 years of national basketball playoffs. A strategy change happened at halftime, and it was clearly described, I suppose, or coached to the team that was in the locker room. And they came out a different team, and we all saw it. And even the non-basketball aficionados saw a difference in the way they're playing. They started playing in a different spot on a basketball court. That wasn't an accident. That was clarity of leadership. And that coach makes $400,000 a year, $4 million, or whatever it is, for their ability to be clear. And so clarity gets rewarded. All right. With that, I want to touch on Built to Last, because I said we're going to start on it. We did a lot of orientation stuff, and I didn't even really get you to all the legal stuff. We're going to get to one of them before. We're not going to do active shooter today. We'll do that in another class when we got some time. I do need to talk about emergency exits, though, because it's hard to find your way out of where we are. And if there is an emergency that occurs, I want us all to get out. And so there are, in this building, there are 4 exits that are accessible to us. There are 5 exits, but we can't get to the one on the far end of the building because it's locked up for administration and student services and, you know, the people behind the glass that lock the doors. And so security's back there too. We can't go through that exit. We can go through in the lobby, the main lobby, which is that way and downstairs. There are exits out this way, and there are exits out this way. If there is a shooter in the building, that's probably where they'll be. And so we have to choose a different exit and we'll talk about that when we're talking about active shooters, and I pray there never will be one. But along the line of active shooters, some of you have heard this, our campus, at Utah campuses are this way, our campus specifically, you don't have to check your guns at the door. If you're legally able to carry a gun and you choose to want to, you're welcome to have a gun in this class. You need to not brandish it. You need to treat it as a concealed carry, and with the respect of that. But if you are trained in doing that, you are welcome to do that. And even though this is a school, this one, our campus, we teach faculty to carry, and we believe nobody shoots up a cop shop, and the reason is they know the cops are going to shoot back. And so we want it to be known that if somebody comes in here trying to shoot us up, we're going to shoot them back. And those of you that aren't comfortable doing that, I'm not trying to change your mind on that. That's fine. But those of you that are comfortable doing that, know that that's acceptable in this class, and on this campus and in this school. And if you have questions about that, please come to me and we'll clarify whatever the questions might be. But exits getting out. So there is an exit also this way, about mid-building, that goes towards that building B, and there is an exit below this lobby here that goes out that way. So those are the 4 exits that are available. To get to them, we have to take one of 2 elevators that is available to us here, one right outside around the corner there, and then one down that goes into the main lobby. If there is a shooter or an emergency like a fire, we're advised not to take the elevator. So we got to take the long way down and let gravity help us make it fast. That's faster than the elevator is anyway. So there are exit stairs, one right on the other side of this wall that you exit going around. And there's one mid-building in the lobby area. That exit has 2 directions. That stairway has 2 directions. That stair, we're on the 3rd floor. It goes up one more flight of stairs to a locked door, but a platform that's out of sight. So it could be a safe hiding place if you needed to seek shelter in a spot where nobody probably is going to look. However, there's a door there that's locked that goes out onto the roof. If someone was trying to escape the building to get on the roof, you'd be right in the path. So that's a thing you'd have to weigh about that. But somebody coming up the stairwell is at a disadvantage if you're armed and on the landing up above. So we'll show you where that is if you want to see that. But those are the stairwells to get out. Those are the 4 doors to get out. If we have a fire in this building, it's not our job to fight the fire. We call the fire department, call 911, let them fight the fire. You get me out and you get out. We'll talk, you don't have to get me out. It's your job to get you out. But I'd appreciate it if you tag me along with you. So we all get out of the building correctly. The last piece of the emergency information that we'll talk about today is a defibrillator. An AED is just past the boardroom. There's a sign on the wall. There's a first aid kit there, and there is a defibrillator there that's gassed up and battered up and ready to bring me back to life. I'm the most likely to drop of a heart attack in this room. So if I go down, somebody please call 911. Somebody else get the defibrillator and jumpstart me, please. That's where it's at. We have them on every floor in this building. So those are available for those kinds of emergency responses. If you have questions about any of that, please do ask. Do want to know. I'm going to show you 2 slides and then we're going to watch a video, and we're going to be done for the day. The first thing I want to do, you saw the process that they selected the companies that went into the book Built to Last. That was in one of the videos we just saw about this book. What they said is they surveyed 250 of the Fortune 500, so half of the Fortune 500 CEOs, half of the Fortune 500 service companies, 150 of the Inc. 500 private companies, so those are non-public. This is like DuPont that's non-public. And 50 of the Inc. 100 public companies. So they took CEOs and asked them who they thought were the most visionary companies. Is that subjective? Yes, but it is a lot of data. And so they sorted all that data to come up with their list of the visionary companies and the comparison companies that they thought were not so visionary. Let me show you that list. It is right here. So these are the visionary companies. You've seen the list. It's circulated around. And these are the companies where they were compared to. So Motorola and Zenith, they both made TVs. They both made radios. Zenith at one time led the world. They lost that position. Somewhere about the time I was working for them. They lost that position. Marriott and Howard Johnson, we know those as hotel type facilities. Johnson & Johnson drug company, Bristol Myers Squibb, another drug company. Merck and Pfizer. Pfizer was in the tank in 1990. What happened to Pfizer just recently? They came up with a COVID vaccine. They made gazillions of dollars on that. Their stock's okay right now. So they came back up. Zenith did not come back up. So those are the lists. In fact, if we were to look at successes and failures, there's an interesting piece to add to this slide. Since this book was published in 1994, those are the companies that are gone. None of them on the visionary side. Most of them on the comparison side. Is that interesting? Time has played hell. I mean, I think there's days when GM is almost upside down. If they were paying attention, there'd be no Hyundai and Kias in this country. Ford and GM gave that market away to an unknown import. Not saying they're bad cars. They've turned out to be excellent cars. And that's part of why they took the market share away. GM didn't get their game up. And so we'll talk about that as well. But this to me is an indictment. None of those businesses needed to fail. And all of them did. Some of the names you recognize, like the name Westinghouse is still around. They sold the name. Because when they were doing their sheriff sale of the company, the name had value. So somebody, in Asia, bought the name Westinghouse to put on the washer and dryers that they make, so I think they're made in America. They're not. But they got an American name on it that they bought, which is fine. Craftsman's name has been sold too a few times. That makes me real mad, because I don't want them to be that way. So we're going to study those more. The last thing that I want to leave on is a video, and I want to change over to this one. This is the leadership topic that I intended to talk about today with more detail, but we will talk about it with the detail that we have, which is, let me find the right video. We're going to look at empowerment for a second. And looking at empower, we're going to watch a 20-some minute video, and that will take us to closing time. The closing comments on this video, maybe we're going to watch this video. That looks right, but it's not right on my screen. So I'll go with that, and we'll play with it as it is. We're going to look at the topic of empowerment, and we're going to look at it from the perspective of Dr. Covey. Some of you remember Stephen Covey. He passed away a few years ago. Very well known in Utah. His business partner lived in Gunlock here, the local, and we used to hear his Learjet fire up in the morning and fly up to Salt Lake to his office. It's kind of cool. But Stephen Covey added an awful lot to the science of management. He was a psychology professor at BYU before he started writing and establishing the Covey Leadership Institute, and they became Franklin Covey, and they added a lot to what we have to draw from. His most popular book was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. If you want some spare reading, that one is proven worldwide. I will talk about some of those habits. One of them we'll talk about in the video that we are going to watch by Stephen Covey. And it was a video that was used by Stephen Covey Group in teaching their trainers. I first saw that video in becoming a trainer for the consulting group that was teaching this book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And they never published this video elsewhere, but I thought it was of such value that we ought to see it. And so I am purposely, I have a purchased copy of the video, but I'm showing you a pre-recorded copy of the video because it has some of my comments from a podium at the very end of this video clip that I want you to hear, because it has to do with the tomato plants that we are going to look at. So it's got me in different hair, in a different era of my life from a few years ago. So that's on purpose. It's not an accident. I have a clean video that I could show you, but I want you to see this that we've been teaching for quite some time. The video we're going to watch is called Max and Max. And these are Max and Max. Max the dog, Max the employee. And in the training that Covey has done, some of you, I'm hoping, have actually seen Max and Max, because you can draw more from it if you have. If this is your first time, we'll talk about it a bit, and you'll have a chance to certainly draw a benefit from it as well. Let's watch Max and Max. And this will pop up to video in just a second.
One of the most enlightening and instructive questions that I've come upon, that I use all the time with groups, and you can think about it with yourself, is this one. You have to be very introspective and be very honest. How many of you honestly believe that the vast majority of the workforce in your organizations possess more creativity, more resourcefulness, more initiative, more talent, more intelligence than their present jobs require or even allow them to use? See, my guess is most of you are raising your hands inside your hearts. And when I do it in large groups, it's like 95% of the people raise their hands. Then I just pose the question. Think of that cost, that waste of human potential. And here we talk about empowerment. It becomes eventually a kind of flippant term that stirs up cynicism inside cultures. Because all it basically is a new form of go for delegation, go for this, go for this, go for this. It's not empowerment at all. I think you'll really enjoy this little vignette. It's a kind of a comedy, but it is so true and is so relevant, of how the style of a particular manager essentially became the mission statement of this organization, not the words on the wall at all. Think deeply about this and enjoy.
Something of a comedy, he said. So, yeah.
Max! Max, come on over here. Hey, you've been picked out of the pack, boy. You've got to have a new home.
Max!
first day.
Wow, New World, that's impressive.
You've heard of them?
Absolutely.
Great.
So what division are you going to be working in?
Customer service. Yeah, I asked for it. I figure it's going to be the best way to find out what people out there really want, you know?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Listen, I gotta run, but let's have lunch sometime. Catch up on old times.
I like that.
Yeah.
Bye.
Meet Max and Max. You wouldn't know it at first glance, but Max and Max have very similar stories. Max was born to purebred parents of the finest stock. The kennel, where he was raised, had an impeccable reputation for preparing puppies to move on to an owner who would then train them to become solid, reliable hunting dogs. Max was born into a hard-working family where there was a strong emphasis on education. Max loved school, did well, and received a scholarship to a noted university, graduating with honors. So here we have Max and Max, both prepared, full of enthusiasm, and ready to make a contribution. Max couldn't wait to meet his new master. He imagined himself on a crisp autumn morning, moving slowly through the tall grass. Suddenly, he locks onto the scent of a game bird. The voice of his master rings out in praise. Good boy, Max. What a dog. Likewise, Max could just see himself, after several fulfilling months on the job, enter his workstation one day to the applause of his fellow workers. There, placed on the keyboard of his computer, is a plaque recognizing him as Customer Service Rep of the Year. Such were the dreams of Max and Max, dreams of service and meaningful contribution. Enter into our story Mr. Harold. Mr. Harold is the manager of the customer service department at New World Imports. He's also the new owner of a hunting dog. When Mr. Harold picked up Max, it was a happy occasion.
You've got all these really great ideas, then put them to work in your own department. Okay.
Likewise, when Max arrived at New World on his first day, Mr. Harold greeted him in an atmosphere of great warmth and welcoming. Mr. Harold talked to Max about his new home, about hunting, and about, well, life in general. Max listened. In his office, Mr. Harold told Max about the company's goal to put the customer first. Service. Service. Service, he said, as he showed him a nice custom version of the department mission statement hanging on his wall. And Max listened.
What they want.
Time went by.
You ready to work on our basic skills this morning, boys?
Max learned quickly. Sit. Stay. Lie down. Front. All these were performed without hesitation.
More than anything else, I want you to learn to stay on the lawn. Got that? I didn't buy you to go running and jumping in the water any old time you want. That's for me to decide.
Then why did you buy me? He thought. Meanwhile, Max became intimately familiar with the higher meaning of practices and procedures.
And they request something that falls outside of the guidelines. What do you say?
I say, I'm sorry, ma'am, or sir, but company policy doesn't allow me to do that. What is that referring to in this case, sir?
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't?
Absolutely not.
Why did you hire me, he thought. And time went by.
I told you not to eat the lawn. Now what are you doing down here? Now you get right back up on that lawn before I take a newspaper to you. Go on, you get. Get up on that lawn.
Max was stunned. All he had on his mind was helping Mr. Harold. He had all this breeding, all this built-in know-how to put to use. The hat falling in the water was the perfect opportunity to be of service. So why is he so upset? he wondered.
Max! What?
Yes, sir?
Sit.
Sid?
Have a seat.
Of course, sir. Thank you, sir.
Tell me about DeWalt Travel Associates.
Oh, yes. Ann DeWalt herself called me to tell me that she hadn't received the luggage shipment. This was the second time, and she was headed to Europe for the big travel show. Couldn't wait for regular shipping, so I overnighted it to her.
I know all that part. What I want to know is why did you do it?
Why?
Yes, why?
Because when she called, shipping was on a shift change.
So?
So I couldn't get anyone to answer.
So?
So after I finished here, I went down to shipping myself, found the right line, and arranged for the overnight shipper to pick it up.
You're missing the point of my question. I don't care about all the hoops you jumped through. I just want to know why did you do that?
Service, 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 sir.
Don't quote company policy to me, young man. There's a larger issue here.
I agree. In fact, I wanted to know if I could make a few departures from company guidelines, maybe for a 30-day period or so, track the results and see if the callback and referral margins go up.
And maybe we can set you up on your own floor. Hire support staff, create a new line item in the corporate budget. Get your own job figured out first, Max. Then you can start worrying about mine, okay?
Yes, sir.
Now, Mr. Harold wasn't really a bad man, you see. In fact, he was really quite average. He just had a certain way of looking at his job, and he wanted those who worked for him, all those who worked for him, to look at their jobs in just the same way.
Go get it, boy! Discipline, boy. Discipline.
And so, as time went by, Max learned exactly what Mr. Harold wanted, and he did it. Likewise, Max put his all into following what seemed to be the real New World guidelines of customer service. And as time went by, he came to know exactly what Mr. Harold wanted, and he gave it to him.
Allow your research team to use their laptops when they're out of the country. Is that right? But you have to understand, it is our policy not to refund or replace after 30 days. I'd be happy to refer you to our customer service supervisor. What will he tell you? I suspect he'll tell you the very same thing, sir. Very well then, sir. We thank you and we appreciate your business. Not that we'll ever get any more.
What was that?
I'm sure we'll see more and more.
The days passed by. Things were going smoothly, just like Mr. Harold would like them to go. But then, one day...
It's a big day, boy. You're going out in the fields. You're going to learn from the pros. So, you're going to get a chance to finally show what you can do. Oh, it's a challenge, I admit. But like we always say around here, challenge is just an opportunity we didn't ask for. So I want you to go out there and remember everything you've learned. Everything I've taught you. There are old customers out there we haven't heard from in a long time. Old friends. And you're going to go out and retrieve them for me. You're finally going to get to do what you've been trained to do. So, get out the elbow grease, strap yourself in, and go get it.
The oration was meant to be motivating, no question, even inspiring. The best of intentions were attached to every word.
Howdy, boys. How y'all today? I was gonna get my gun and I'll be right out, okay? Max, come on, get in the truck.
Max was truly excited to go out to the fields and flush out game, but he wouldn't leave the lawn. And Max learned quickly that no matter how sincerely he restated company policy to lost customers, they still had the same problems. Mr. Harold's lofty goals were not being achieved. Mr. Harold was perplexed. At first he tried encouragement.
Look, boy, I don't know what the problem is, but see, you need to look at this like it's an adventure. That more than anything else is fun, because with each old customer you talk to on that phone comes an opportunity to make a new friend.
Yeah, but they all hate me. Oh, I remember you. No, you're the one who said no.
I understand, I do, but see those guys? They want to go. They're ready to go. And see their dogs? Their dogs are ready to go. You don't see those dogs lying around with their chins on the ground, do you? The question I'm starting to ask myself now is, why am I paying you the kind of money I'm paying you, and this is what I get in return, huh? Can you answer me that? You are supposed to be the best that money can buy. And look at you. I give you your big chance, your big opportunity to show what you can do, and this is what you do with it? Come on! There's all that brains and education and ambition you walked in here with a few months ago.
So here we have Max, wondering why Mr. Harold was so angry with him when he finally learned to stay on the grass, no matter what. And Max wondering why, when he was doing his level best to implement the connection between company policy and customer service, was Mr. Harold so thoroughly disgusted with his work. Time went by. And one day, Mr. Harold's boss decided that what was lacking in his assignment to bring back old customers was teamwork. So he suggested to Mr. Harold that he throw a little party for all the customer service reps. Why don't you do it in your own backyard, he said. It'll give it that personal touch. And so he did.
Max, you haven't tried my famous ribs yet.
Well,
They'll melt in your mouth. Best thing you ever ate. My honey dog, and I use the term loosely, loves them.
so, if the dog likes them, well, then I should like them. Makes sense. Thank you, sir.
Yes, well, I hope you're enjoying the party. Hey, everybody, come on down here and let me show you what I've been working on all summer.
The party was a real success. Mr. Harold was particularly pleased. I just needed to get these people to like me, he thought. Now, when I chew on them, they'll know it's nothing personal.
Yeah. Dandy, huh? Yep. Can't have a boat without a hat. All right? How do you like this? Took me 3 months. Sit there at your tiller. You don't go on the party. Just go on the party. I'll go train. You don't know. You don't. Come on, I'll go train. I'll be all right.
You must know something about that hat that I don't.
There was an interesting connection felt by Max and Max on that summer day, though neither of them really knew what it was. But nonetheless, fate was having her way on that day, proving that not all of the best ironies in life are reserved for stories in storybooks, as we might suppose. And time went by.
I hope you enjoyed that. My guess is you identified with it. I know I did. Here's this young man. He's so enthusiastic when he starts out. So turned on by this mission statement. So anxious to do whatever it takes to serve customers and to learn the business from that angle. And then this dog. Look at what happened to the dog. I mean, he started out so enthusiastic, wanting his full instincts to be unleashed. Did you see that dog start to train Max? Train Max, the young man, not to go get the hat. And within a short period of time, the spirit of both Max and Max was gone. Isn't that interesting how that happens? It's like a culture of disempowerment. Everything contributes to an essentially robbing people of their creative energy, of their power to make choices, to exercise options, to use their ingenuity, their creativity. For instance, here the dog really wants to help get that hat. It's punished for it. Here Max goes out of his way to serve the customer, and you see the delight in his eyes, I hope you'll affirm me and appreciate what I've done for this customer. And then he's slapped around. In fact, he's slapped around so much, eventually, you can just sense that he gets tighter and tighter and loses more and more of his spirit. Mr. Harold senses it. So he comes in with Band-Aid solutions, with aspirin solutions, that doesn't reflect an understanding of what's happened to create this kind of culture. But he comes in thinking, well, what you need is more rah-rah, more psycho. Let's get you excited again, like you were once. I mean, look at the money we're paying you. Look what we've done for you. And this is the attitude that you have, that you take, see? And he also senses the whole demoralization has spread to the department, so he has a party. Let's jazz up our department to create more teamwork. You see, these are just simplistic solutions. It's like the program of the month. What happens is that it fatigues the culture, and it creates cynicism. People don't believe it anymore. You have to work in a far more fundamental way. You first have to understand the concept of empowerment. We don't empower others. We create the conditions that release their human potential, that enable them to exercise their own unique gifts and endowments to accomplish some worthy purpose, to go after some goal within the guidelines, not rules or practices, but principles, guidelines, which essentially give parameters, but within that, you do whatever it takes, consistent with those correct principles to accomplish those desired results. And then to set up structures and systems that reinforce this kind of culture, that facilitate people being empowered, that help them instead of straitjacket them and cut them off when they make the first mistake, causing them to always look over their shoulder, wondering who's going to step into my life now. This culture of empowerment can be brought about by Mr. Harold. It really can. But he'd have to go to work in some fundamental ways in his own area. You probably noticed how he learned his style, probably in part from his boss's style. Remember in that opening scene when his boss was going out saying, you get your own department in order before you work on mine. The very words he used with Max. The problem is, though, that you get into what's called the self-fulfilling prophecy. The less empowerment you create for other people, the less initiative they exercise. The less they exercise, the more evidence you have why you must control them. Then the other person feels their spirit is broken. They exercise less initiative until the initiative muscles atrophy. They're gone. And then you have this institutionalized dependency. It is so common in organizations, really. This thing can be broken. But it takes the proactive muscle and initiative of any one person. So think about what you might do if you were an enlightened Mr. Harold and going into the situation with an awareness of what you have done, what you have contributed to. He'd have to in some way create more freedom, more structures and systems that would encourage the release of human potential. How would you bring about a change to create the conditions of empowerment?
Well, I'd like to talk about that quite a bit. As a matter of fact, that can become the subject of probably a half-day beginning seminar with the management team. I want to wrap up with just a few sentences and then we'll transition over to Deborah, and we welcome Scott in the room as well. There are a couple things that I just want to make sure that we grasp from that video and some of the concepts. Remember, it opened up with the idea that people want to give more than we allow them to do in most settings. And that's a human principle. It's a major foul. It shouldn't be going on. We ought to be able to create conditions that allow people to exercise what they can contribute, to reach their potential and to grow their potential. And as leaders, that's an obligation that we have, to protect and grow the assets of the organization. That's a requirement in growing the assets of the human beings in our organization. Interesting, wasn't it, how the attitudes were just completely deflated of Max and Max as you looked at that. And we recognize some people just like that, don't we? That we know in our organization. They have more to offer, and we somehow have taken it away from them. We've sapped them. And we don't want in our own game for that to be a scenario. So I started out saying that Covey has a premise that you cannot empower another person. What is it that he substituted that with? What is it in this video that you just saw that we can do? What do you notice? Alfonso. Allow more freedom. Okay? We can't make someone empowered, but we can do what? We can create conditions. Stan?
Opportunity for them to empower themselves.
Opportunity and conditions in which they can grow. Let me just real quickly give a parallel here, because I think this is powerful and important for us as we digest a little more of the video. We don't want it just to be entertainment. We want to take a principle in our own game as a leader. For example, if I want to grow some world-class tomatoes to enter into the state fair in Salt Lake in September, I want I want to get the biggest tomato, and I want to grow the biggest. Can I do that? Can I make a tomato grow? No. The answer is no. I can buy seeds, but I can't make the seeds grow. But what I can do is create conditions, right, in which they would grow. I can study the pH of the soil, how loose or sandy does it need to be. I can get the right fertilizer studied. I can look at how many minutes of daylight and dark it needs. I can look at moisture content. I can look at all kinds of conditions, temperature rates, right, that will give that seed the maximum opportunity to grow. But I can't make it grow. I can just create conditions. As a leader, isn't it exactly the same thing with human beings? I can't make people grow. I can't make my own children grow. But I certainly can help create conditions in which they will grow, or their opportunity is optimized. And as leaders, that's our obligation, is to create an environment in which people can grow. Now here's the $64 question. I can't make them grow, but can I kill that tomato plant? Oh, I can. And how easy it is to kill it, isn't it? Just screw up a little thing and I kill the plant. I can't make it grow. I can spend all this money and time and effort and attention on the environment and the conditions in which it could grow, but I can kill it. How about leadership? Have you seen a leader kill the enthusiasm in a person? Now, as a leader, how many of you killed? How many have I killed? In my career, how many people were looking to me to help them have an environment in which they could grow? I killed them. Well, we can't fix what we've done, but we can look forward and say, you know what, that's something I can do better at. That's something I can be more cognizant of, I can be more aware of. And not only that, I can be an instrument in teaching this in my family. Are these principles true as a dad and mom? Oh boy, they are. These are human principles. And how about with my coworkers? How about in my organization? Can I be a teacher of these principles? I can say, hey, look, I'm trying to put this into my own game, but let me talk through it because I'm learning from this. And I want to be better at it. Let's help each other. Let's be better at this. Creating an environment where human potential can grow, can thrive. So that's kind of a seed, so to speak, of a principle that I want us to take and put in our leadership toolbox. We'll talk more about this. We're completely out of time. We really are. And so we're going to end up with that. That's the tomato thing. You've got a packet of tomato seeds, enough for a tomato garden. They can grow and produce tomatoes, or we can kill it. I got cyanide thumb. So let's see who can get a tomato to grow the fastest and bloom, and work on conditions that you want for yours. If you want to trade your packet or brand or species of tomato out for one of these packets that's left here before you go, you're welcome to do that. I want to thank everybody that's here tonight. I'm excited for us to get to know each other, for us to help each other out, for us to grow our game a little bit better, and become teachers of people around us. So that's something I want. I'm looking forward to seeing you at 5:30 Thursday night. A couple of you, we've talked already about options. I will get everybody onto Canvas. Hopefully Thursday they've got me cleared on Canvas, so hopefully we'll get everybody logged on that way. This video, we didn't see much of a PowerPoint, but what we did see will be on the Canvas already. I've posted it up. You just can't, it's not published yet. So we'll be good. If you have questions or anything, you have my cell phone number. You are welcome to call me or text me anytime, day or night. I choose whether I answer or not. If I'm teaching, I don't answer. And then I will get back to you. I'd love to visit with you offline, outside of class. You're welcome to reach out. If you've got a question, you got a problem, anything that you want to reach out about, I'll be happy to talk about. See you Thursday. Thanks. All my books are still here. That's cool. Thank you for not taking them. Yeah.
You talk to someone with me?
I do.
It was hilarious. So, I actually had a meeting with all supervisors. I was going to work for like 2 weeks, and he talked me out of it, obviously. But we were talking about it, and that's why I'm here. Actually, is like, this, I do this. Anyway, he's like, and he told me, he's like, yeah, Steve was over there doing more stuff. I'm like, yeah, I met him in Walmart the other day. He's like, awesome. He's like, yeah, they haven't given up. I'm trying to get hold of him about different things. And I was like, I'll surprise him. I can get hold of him. Well, I texted you. He texted me back like right after. So I told him. He's like, he texted you. Wait, you didn't call me? I'm like, hey, man, me and Steve got a scene, you know? It was perfect. But I was just like, hey, man. So he's like, well, you tell him to call me. And I'm like, no, I don't do that. He's like, what do you mean? He's like, that's why people talk to me. Because they know they can talk to me without getting in trouble. It's cool. He's actually pretty excited about it because I actually set this all up myself and went and told him, hey, I'm like, I'll pay for it if you want. He's like, no, we want to do it for you. We want to get you there. We want to set you up. And he's like, I want you to give me feedback because he said he's on like a board or something. Yeah, he's like, he wants to talk about it. So give me feedback.
Yeah, really? No, I like it.
We're trying to come up with a
Well, I'll see you Thursday or something. Maybe next Tuesday.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit. And,
hey, so is it just Tuesday, Thursday then? Oh, they're telling me it was Tuesday,